So J.D. Vance went out to Utah yesterday with Usha, Second Lady Usha Vance, and they picked up the Kirk family that was in Utah with Charlie, grieving. I'm sure Erika flew out there immediately to be with everybody and picked them up in Air Force Two, including Charlie's remains. Even just saying that seems unbelievable to me. I'm just still like... And here you can see when they disembarked, getting back to Arizona, Erika Kirk disembarking with Usha holding hands, the vice president following behind. And Usha Vance just seems like the perfect person for that job. She's so smart. She's such an empathetic person. I've met her. She's totally beautiful in the truest sense of that word. I don't know, maybe God sent her, maybe Charlie sent her to go be with Erika. I can see her being a great comfort in a moment like that. And the video of J.D. Vance walking as a pallbearer on the front of Charlie's casket as it approaches Air Force Two is something remarkable. For the listening audience, we're showing it now. The wind is blowing in Utah. You see, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 or more service personnel in the military. Of course, J.D. Vance is a retired Marine. On the front of this casket, a brown casket, which they took from the hearse, inching toward Air Force Two. I know for a fact Charlie rode on Air Force One. I'll bet he rode on Air Force Two because he and J.D. were quite close. And just the thought of Charlie having been on Air Force Two with J.D. Vance as a friend and a colleague and a supporter. And now his final trip back home to Arizona on that Air Force Two again, though this time in a casket. It's just awful. Poor Erika. Her long blonde hair blowing in the breeze. This woman is spectacular. She's stunningly beautiful, but she's equally smart. You always can find her in a crowd because of the long blonde hair, the long flowing blonde hair, the sparkling blue eyes. And there's a great video circulating online. It's about 10 minutes long. I think it was a Turning Point production with both of them. It's just cuts between Erika and Charlie on how they met. We have about 2 minutes of a cut. You're going to enjoy this. Our toughest decision this morning was deciding what not to put in. Watch this.
What was it like dating Erika? Very fun. I mean, she's incredibly loyal, a great sport about traveling and about always having my back. For those people that know me, I sit around most times and don't do much and adverse to traveling, very shy, trying to find my purpose in life. So she was obviously very helpful at fixing all those things.
I truly feel as if every piece of my life prepared me to date him. And eventually, obviously, marry him, but to date him. And I say that because ever since I was little, and even after college and adult years, I traveled all the time. And I was used to living out of a suitcase. I was used to a very unconventional schedule. I was used to the entrepreneur mindset and just in the mode of building and building and building. And so I got him. I understood that. I understood his sporadic schedule because mine was just as sporadic. And I understood the sleepless nights, and I understood having to make the time for someone. It doesn't just come to you. You have to work at it. You have to invest into it. And so dating each other, I loved it. I mean, we got to know each other. I tell you what, you learn something about someone a lot more quickly by traveling with them than you do just seeing them on a weekend for just a getaway. When you travel with someone and you have to go through TSA and you have to go through all the different airports and you have to deal with hotel rooms not being ready and car rentals not working out and missing your flight and every logistic you can imagine, because you see every flavor of someone's humanity. And we just, God literally made us for each other.
She was always such a great sport with all the chaos that is my life, and Turning Point USA, and my biggest fan and my biggest cheerleader, and always being just so full of grace and wanted to see me succeed.
In the video, they talk about how they met at Turning Point. Erika was actually seeking a job. She was living in Manhattan at the time, and she was seeking a job. And Charlie said, he sent her a text, I guess, saying, I'll meet you at, I think he said, like Bill's Burgers in New York, where he didn't live. You know, he's in Arizona. And she said she'd been living in Manhattan for years. She'd never even heard of Bob's Burgers or Bill's Burgers. Same, by the way. And but she said, okay, fine. She wanted the job. So she and Charlie met at Bill's and sat there for 3 hours talking. And she's thinking she's on a job interview the whole time. And it cuts to him sort of being like, I moved past whether I wanted to hire her, and it moved on pretty quickly to whether I wanted to date her. And at the end, she said something like, did I get the job? And he said, no, I don't want to hire you. And she was like, oh, okay. She already had a job. So she was like, okay, I'll just keep doing my current job. And he said, I want to date you. And she said something to the effect of, can I think it over? And he said, sure, you can think it over until tomorrow night when I'm going to take you out again. It's just so great. Charlie had such swagger. You know, that was something that we loved about him. He had swagger and confidence, but in a gentlemanly way. I played that soundbite the other day of him on Courtship, you know, when he was talking to those two young podcasters on, of course you must pay for the first date as the guy when you are courting a woman. That the money you save is not worth the honor you sacrifice. And I guarantee you he paid at Bill's Burgers, and that he paid the next night too, because he was a gentleman. He was an old school gentleman. And by the way, this is one of those things that people give Charlie a hard time for. He used to say they were living a Christian life. I mean, deeply Christian, both of them. And he used to say, he said on, I think, more than one occasion that I heard publicly, women, submit to your husbands. Oh, well, that drove leftist women in particular absolutely nuts. Now, I am not living that kind of a life. I don't live like that with Doug. I don't submit to Doug. Exactly. Like, we kind of both submit to each other, to be honest with you. But I understood exactly what he was saying. They had a traditional Christian marriage where Charlie was the head of household. He was the patriarch and she was the matriarch. And she explains in this video what that means, you know, how she enjoyed making a home that would rise up to meet Charlie when he got home. And she would ask him, how can I make it more comfortable for you? How can I support you when you come home from these busy trips where you're building for our family and taking care of us? And they would wake up every day saying, you know, how can I make your day better and more aligned with our faith and our belief in Christ and live in a more godlike manner? That's what they meant. He was the head of household and he would make certain decisions, and she was fine with that. You could see she's a very assertive, smart young woman. It's not like, Erika, you do exactly as I tell you. You know, it's not the way I live, but I had absolutely no judgment for the way they lived. And it totally worked for them. They were mad for each other. And I can't help but think about it now because she must feel so lost. She must feel so lost without him and so in need of him right now. You know, like the person she needs to get her through this is the person she's lost, who is at the center of what she's going through. This is a picture of her in the car being taken from the plane back to her house. There's one where she's holding up a cross. There's one where she's holding up a rosary. She, thank God, is a God-fearing woman. There it is. You can see she's holding it. She loves God. She's connected with her faith, and that will help her. And she will need that mightily now. Can't help but think of the fact that who ultimately convinced the shooter to turn himself in? It was a minister. It was a Christian minister. I just got the chills. Who knows how the hand of fate works? Who sent that youth minister there? Who inspired the dad to call a minister into the house to convince the shooter to turn himself in? Who was behind those wheels as they spun? I don't know. It's interesting to think about as Erika's there holding up the rosary and holding up the cross. And now we know the shooter was within hours of confessing and turning himself in. It's pretty remarkable. And, you know, there's been some criticism of Kash Patel. We'll get to that in a bit, but I give him all the credit. They got the guy. And it's not just they got him because he turned himself in. They got him because they released the photos. They kept turning up the pressure. And it was the photos that led the dad, Robinson's dad, to recognize his son. That's exactly what law enforcement's hoping will happen when they release those photos. Someone, a friend, a family member, et cetera, will recognize the photo and do something. It's how they caught Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, too. His brother recognized the writings that were in his manifestos that were published in the papers. Why were they published? Why did these newspapers agree to publish the rantings of a lunatic who was bombing people? They were hoping it might trigger something for somebody. Like they'll recognize, and that's exactly what happened. So he's taking some heat. I'm going to get to the criticism on Cash in a minute, but let me just stay on Charlie and Erika. So he convinced her. She said she went home, she talked to her mom. The mom said, "Did you get the job?" She said, "No, I didn't get the job, but I think I got a date." And mom said, "That's great, terrific, awesome." And it seems like from that point forward, there was no turning back. And these two are clearly perfect for each other. They're both absolutely gorgeous. It's actually kind of funny because, no offense to Charlie, but I mean, Erika is objectively gorgeous by any person's measure. But Charlie, I had a very funny conversation with somebody on his team who was telling me that Charlie used to be a little more nerdy, 10 years ago, he was certainly a little bit more nerdy. And he was very much always in the suit and almost looked like he was playing dress up because he was so young, like an Alex P. Keaton type. And that they recently persuaded him to ditch the suits and put on a black T-shirt and maybe let's ruffle the hair a little and go out there looking less than perfectly coiffed. And they were saying that it worked. I mean, like his youth following, especially with the female persuasion, went through the roof. And that's great. Whatever you can do to get people to pay attention to your message, you do, So all these young women started falling in love with Charlie because he suddenly went from like a kind of nerdy, smart kid to like this cool MAGA type. And boy, but Charlie never looked away. Charlie had zero interest in anyone other than Erika. And that was really clear, just if you talk to Charlie at all. I mean, when I met Charlie the first time in person, we were backstage at a Turning Point event down in Florida. And they had just had their first child, their daughter. And he's got this crazy event going on. There are people everywhere. There's, the president's coming in. He was not the president at the time, but Trump was coming in. All these people are coming in. And who's backstage? There's Erika on a blanket that's spread out in the middle of the chaos. Backstage, yes, but like in the middle of the chaos. She's sitting there with their baby daughter. And Charlie had been sitting there with her. I mean, his life was so crazy that day. And he had been sitting there with her for a bit. And that's just the kind of relationship they had. She would go on the road with him. I made the point that in AM Update the other day that I love these pictures of them at the beach with their kids and Charlie's in a suit. This is so great. It's so on brand because he told me personally he doesn't know what to do with himself while he's on vacation. That he was unable to like kind of sit and veg and meditate. I feel the same a lot of the time. Like I cannot get massages because all I do is think about the million things that are in the news. What do we run this right soundbite? Could we have done that better? Maybe it could have been tighter. Tomorrow I'll do a different thing. And he was exactly that same way. It's not that you can't ever relax, and it's certainly not that you don't enjoy time with your family. That he did, and that I do as well. But that kind of sitting on the beach doing nothing was not his thing. Which is why I laugh when these pictures are, of him in the suit. He was a doer. He was a go-getter. And that's how he built Turning Point from that little operation in his parents' garage when he was 18 and like basically hand sketching his own logo to this juggernaut with the fire when you'd walk out and the lights and, the pyrotechnics and the great montages that made all of us look cooler than we are. And Charlie would just do it all. He would, if you wanted to give a speech, you give a speech. If you wanted to be interviewed by him, which I think is a little bit easier as the person appearing, that's no problem. He'll interview everybody. Like he'll just do it. He can do it off the top of his head. Then he'd say, let's do a podcast behind the scenes. Okay, we'll go do that too. Like endless energy. When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special, Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to 10 grand. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.